How we doing, everybody? It's your guy Wardy here, and as you can see, we're back at it breaking down the latest in Mets land. And we have plenty to get into in our latest Big Mets update segment, that being August 5th, 2025. And this comes the day after the Mets falter in a dramatic extra innings loss by a final score of 7-6 against the Cleveland Guardians, now having dropped 6 other past 7 games. If you want to see my level of frustration, analysis, and initial reaction to this past night's loss, even after the Mets rally from 5 runs down for their largest rally of the year, that still fell short. Make sure to check out this past night's post-game live show on the platform, as well as what you guys can see right here, right now, where I am at every single day in the Bleacher Report app. Simply head over to Bleacher Report, go to the MLB section, then go to Mets, and then scroll down, and you'll see your guy Wardy here breaking down in either a 90 seconds to tops 3 minutes of a quick video reaction to every single game going forward throughout the remainder of the season there in the BR app, as well as our longer form content again here on the WardyNYM YouTube channel. Because today, folks, we're going to get into the latest regarding David Stearns and what he shared with the media this past day, which had everything to do with his potential stubbornness when evaluating the guys in McLean and Brandon Sproat, 2 of the Mets' top pitching prospects that every Mets fan and their mother has been crying for, saying, hey, when are we going to see these kids at the major league level? Yet David Stearns is still not ready to make that jump for at least one of them. Why exactly is that is what we're going to break down. We're going to hear his thoughts, as well as Carlos Mendoza. We're also going to get into not only the latest status for guys in McLean there and Mr. Brandon Sproat, but also Frankie Montas. Because yesterday I told you all how it looked like that Carlos Mendoza is finally fed up with Frankie Montas getting his next turn in this rotation. However, it does appear that Montas is staying in the fold for now, but with a slight twist. Do we agree with that twist or not is what we're going to get into, along with Hamel, the latest call-up for this Mets team, making his MLB debut potentially as soon as tonight in Game 2 against the Cleveland Guardians. And to wrap up this show, we're going to get into a little bit more on the Mets' continued lack of consistency from the pitching, the offense, what could potentially get them right here going forward for the remainder of the season. So sit back, relax, and get yourself ready for the ride, which is our latest Mets breakdown. But hit that like and subscribe on your way in, because, folks, we are giving away a Mets jersey to one lucky subscriber this Thursday here on the platform for a later night. Make sure you're chiming in later in the evening there on the Mets off day. We're doing 2 live shows. One is going to be for our members only latest Q&A segment. If you guys are a member on the platform, or if you want to become one, click the link down below in the description. There's a member option for you guys to consider, and we do Q&A live shows every single month to our respective members. And we're also doing a separate live show from there to give away a Mets jersey to one lucky subscriber in the chat as a thank you for 34,000 subscribers. And once we hit 35k, we'll be giving away another Mets jersey to a lucky subscriber. So make sure you guys are chiming the shows later on the week. Thank you guys kindly for that, as well as hearing from our amazing sponsors of the platform at Mumu, the official trading platform of the New York Mets. BetUS that has you covered for all of your sports betting needs, so make sure you guys bet responsibly. Simply head over there to betus.com.pa today and utilize our promo code YouTube150, because YouTube will get a 150% bonus on your first deposit. So whether it's going to be for Mets games, whether it's going to be for different types of games, picks, props, plays, you name it, BetUS has you covered. But make sure you guys are doing it responsibly, as well as our amazing friends here at SeatGeek that has you covered for all of your ticketing needs. Simply head over to the SeatGeek app that I love to absolutely utilize, because as you guys can see here, their ticketing scale is so easy to work with. It goes from red to green color coordination wise, as well as 1 to 10 on the ranking. If it's 7 through 10 in the green, it's a great bang for your buck. If it's 1 through 4 in the red, it's not a good bang for your buck. So make sure you guys are getting the right tickets the right way with our awesome friends at SeatGeek for Mets tickets, concert show tickets, the NFL season right around the corner, you name it. Simply utilize our promo code WARDY10 for 10% off your next ticket purchase. Link down below in the description, and thank you guys kindly for that. Now let's get right into this one, and let's get into some miscellaneous topics separate from the main ones that we're talking about today, because I think you guys are all going to appreciate the following discussion. And it begins here with the proper discourse, understandably so, with our frustration level as a Mets fan after seeing this transpire this past day. We all saw it, everybody, but let's just relay it once more. Here is Tyrone Taylor. Here is Tyrone Taylor about to round third base. You guys see how that ball is first starting to be thrown in. Taylor is already at third. The ball is not even in the hands of the cutoff man yet. It's less than 2 outs, yet instead of sending Tyrone Taylor home, what very well could have won this ball game in a walk-off fashion in the ninth, instead Mike Sarbaugh, Mets third base coach, held him at third base when Tyrone Taylor's entire job as to why he came in a pinch run for Francisco Alvarez in the ninth inning after Alvy got on with a leadoff single is for the sole purpose to try to steal run and win this ball game. In my humble opinion, this feels like malpractice that they were not able to make this send happen, and ultimately it would be the Mets' demise as he lost in extras again by a final score of 7-6. So just to reiterate, how close was Tyrone Taylor to getting himself past third? He was already past third, and mind you, the ball was not even in the cutoff man's hands. Would it have been close? Yes. Is there potential that Tyrone Taylor still would have been out at home? Yes, but given the fact that the Mets were not able to score there in the ninth inning, they lost in extras, is further reason to say Tyrone Taylor should have been sent home from start to finish in this matchup. And that is what I have to say about that. But now let's go on from talking about Tyrone Taylor to talking about Mr. Carlos Mendoza as well as David Stearns. There's a couple key things I want to get into there, but there's actually one final thing I want to share, and it is as follows, as you guys can see right here, right now. The Mets reportedly had substantial trade talks with the Athletics about Mason Miller ahead of the trade deadline. Now, I'm not going to expand on this much. All I'm going to say is the Mets were involved, that we know from the start, pretty much involved in the Mason Miller market, and we would have loved Mason Miller. Mason Miller is one of the most electrifying young relievers in all of baseball. Buddy throws 104 like it's nothing, has 4+ years of control. Why didn't the trade happen? Because the Mets were not going to be a madman like AJ Preller and give up not only any top prospect, but arguably the best prospect in baseball, and Leo DeVries, that they traded in this trade to the A's. So the Mets were deemed actually as the most serious team pursuing Mason Miller, and the only reason why it didn't happen is because, again, the Mets were not able to stomach the asking price, which would have been nothing short of an absolute haul. So instead, the Mets settled with guys like Tyler Rogers, Gregory Soto a little bit earlier, Ryan Helsley, to build a super bullpen with rentals at the fraction of a cost prospect-wise versus what AJ Preller did, which is every single deadline, giving up the entire farm in doing so. And obviously, the Mets' pursuit of Mason Miller would have told you that not only do they love him as a reliever, they would have probably stretched him as a starter at some point next season, I'd imagine. Because if you're going to do it for a guy like Clay Holmes, why wouldn't you do it for a guy like Mason Miller, who profiles so well as a potential starting option? He's dominating the bullpen, but I think you could get more out of him, and I think the Padres and AJ Preller agree heading into 2026. And the final thing here, Byron Buxton, the Mets were one of 6 teams that were in the market for him, trying to see if he would waive his no-trade clause. However, I'm sure that did not get far, because Byron made it known going back to the All-Star break that he is not going anywhere. He's a Minnesota Twin through and through. You have to wonder if that philosophy changed a little bit for him, as he saw everybody and their mother get traded from the Twins outside of him at this past year's deadline. Twins fans are absolutely jaw-dropped. The entire organization looks like it just went belly up in the snap of a finger, and that's what happens when you make rash decisions at the deadline and you care about not only maybe the organization, but more so your personal point of view from the front office down versus whatever the fans have to say. So Byron Buxton staying in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Not surprised to see that, everybody. But now let's get into Carlos Mendoza, Mets skipper, and see what he had to say.
What do you think is the biggest difference between the team that won 7 in a row and the team that's now lost 5 of their last 6?
We haven't got consistency out of the starting pitching. I think that's where it starts every night. It starts on the mound, and we haven't been able to get some quality starts. So I think that's, probably the number one reason, I would say.
For context, over the past 46 games, there has been only one starter in the Mets rotation who has averaged to go 6+ innings, and that's David Pearson. Every other Mets starter in their rotation over the past 46 games, I kid you not, has been averaging right around 4.2 innings. No wonder the Mets built a super bullpen, because they're getting no length whatsoever from the remainder of their rotation. Is it a problem? Yes. Is it going to continue to be a problem until they fix something in this regard? Yes. And I'm not exactly sure what that immediate fix is going to be, but when talking about the rotation, this is what Carlos Mendoza has to say in regards to Frankie Montas.
Yeah, so we're having those discussions here. He is going to pitch against the Brewers. So Seng is going to go Friday after the off day. But because we have an off day in between that series, we could get creative. So maybe an opener in front of him. But as of right on Saturday, he's going to play a part of that game. So depending on how we get through on Friday, we'll see. But he's, like I said, on Saturday he's pitching.
I guess just the way you're describing this, then how much of Montas are you kind of just taking this start by start now?
No, I mean, I don't want to get too far ahead. Right now we're talking about next start, and that's what we got. I spoke with him earlier today. He's going to prepare to as he's started, but there's a scenario where we could go an opener here.
So, Frankie Montas, who we all agree, if he's not going to be immediately DFA'd by this team, then the next best option is to move him to the bullpen. I understand the initial thought process behind the Mets here to say, hey, let's put a opener in place and then have Montas kind of get a little bit more familiar with not starting the ball game. That is clearly what they're trying to do here, but my main gripe is twofold. It's one, what is the Mets record this year when utilizing an opener? Oh yeah, it's 5-10. So you might as well start to wave the white flag already if you haven't. Secondly, what is another major problem that I have? Well, if that opener, say, only goes one inning, pulling his best Huascar Brosman impression, going back to the couple times he's done that this year, I'm not exactly sure how much that moves the needle or prepares a guy like Montas to handle more of a reliever workload. The Mets have been in dire need of trying to find that true middleman of a reliever who can give you multiple innings. Pretty much since Trevor Williams left the Mets a couple years ago, they have not been able to properly fill that void for a guy who can consistently be a multi-innings eater for them outside of the likes of Rico Garcia as of late, who was latest designated for assignment. Hopefully stays in the organization because we love ourselves some Rico. Point is that the Mets are trying to get creative with Montas here, but that creativity has far more to do with investing $34 total million in the player than I think it is anything else. And the Mets' complete lack of depth on the rotation front right now is furthermore the reason as to why they're not as easy to shift him straight to the bullpen as much as maybe some fans, including myself, would like to see. Do I love the idea of going with an opener? No. And I will go as far as say as to if this is just a one-inning opener and then Montas comes in, I think it's rather foolish. I'm really not sure just how much this is going to benefit the player, but I will, of course, be happy if I'm proven wrong if Montas goes out here, maybe gives us 3-4 solid innings after an opener goes an inning or two. And, when we think of piggyback situations, especially, this is something that I proposed on the platform going back a number of weeks. I mean, you guys can go back to our early discussions in early to mid-July, including my great breakdown with Will Salmon before the trade deadline on how he spoke about maybe Clay Holmes can be utilized in a piggyback situation where he either starts the ball game for 3 or 4 innings, then you bring in one of a Noah McLean or a Brandon Sproat, or vice versa. You have one of the kids start the inning, and then Clay Holmes comes in. Well, I think that philosophy should be applied here to Frankie Montas. It appears that they're trying to do that to a degree, but it is not going to be with one of those young arms, at least as of now. And when we expand more on this is what Mendy has to say.
Are they likely or ready to come up? Could they pitch at the major league level now?
It's a good question. I mean, they continue to develop, and they continue to put themselves in a position where, like, all right, we're going to have that conversation. They're knocking out the door. They continue to have experience in AAA. We're, August now, and they've thrown a lot down there. So, and again, we like where they at as far as their development. So everything that we're asking them to do, they continue to make improvements. So.
You see how Mendy said that's a good question? He obviously knows the answer. And I'm sure Mendy is probably one of many people that's like, yeah, we should utilize the kids right now. But this is not his call. It's David Stearns' call. And while Stearns appreciates Mendy's input, I'm sure that they're on similar wavelengths right now. Let's hear from Mets Pobo himself, David Stearns, as to why the kids are still not getting the call as much as we have been beating the drum and crying for this. For how long now? I would say at least long enough. Now let's go up here. Let's go to see these Stearns comments here, and then we'll go from there.
Varying different ways, but obviously there's a lot of interest in your 2 top starters down in Syracuse right now.
Yeah.
Why aren't they up here, to ask it bluntly?
Yeah, I think it's always a combination of when developmentally those guys are ready, and also like when there's the need and how to fit it on the roster. And so we may get to the point where we decide that it's the best thing to do to bring one or both of them here. but we're not at that point quite yet.
So we're not at that point yet in regards to Brandon Sproat and Jonathan. So not Jonathan, even though Jonathan should absolutely at minimum be in Syracuse right now, if not considered for this rotation. But that's a discussion for another day, apparently. Between McLean and Sproat, they're not at that point yet. Okay, so what do we think for a while? Maybe it's because the Mets are waiting for mid-August, because around August 15th, there's been this belief that you wouldn't have to worry about that player's first year of service time because it won't be eaten. However, that's inaccurate, and that's what I want to get clarified. And what's been clarified since then is around August 16th or so is the status of rookie eligibility, which is irrelevant more so from service time manipulation and really is not a key factor as to why the Mets would not be bringing up one of these guys sooner. So what am I trying to make the point of here, everybody? David Stearns doesn't have any true rightful reason not to bring the kids up outside of his stubbornness, as well as what he believes is still not proper development. Now, you know it's a problem when it's not only myself who's been advocating for these players for endless weeks now, it's being widespread. Will Salmon of The Athletic has been questioning the same exact thing. I had an interaction with my guy Joe DeMayo for SNY on X yesterday, and he was in wholehearted agreement that the Mets should be considering one of these kids and calling them up now. The fact that it hasn't happened yet, the fact that it didn't happen the month and a half span where there were key opportunities to do so leading up to the trade deadline, let alone the All-Star break, is foolish in my humble opinion, because now David Stearns, the same man who's emphasized one of the reasons as to why the kids will not be called up to this point, going back to previous pressers this year, has to do with you never want to really call up a player based on necessarily team need. In the case of putting the pressure on their shoulders, especially if they don't handle that expectation. Well, here we are in August, and what are the Mets inevitably going to do when they call up one, if not both of not Jonathan, even though I would love Jonah. I think that's why he's on my mind, because he was dominating at the time of recording this as we speak in the minor leagues right now, his latest game against a Yankees affiliate, including he struck out George Lombard Jr., for those that don't know, is a Yankees top offensive prospect, so kind of a big deal. But the point I'm trying to make here, everybody, is that when you have the stubborn mentality of, oh yeah, we don't want to make this decision because of, A all the way to Z, yet the reasons why you're going to then make this decision is completely contradictory as to why you said you wouldn't, that's going to bother me as well as it's going to bother other fans. There's really no way to justify why the kids have not been up yet, but he has went with the belief for a bit that, okay, you especially do not want to kind of force their hand and put them in a manner because the Mets are acting in desperation. Well, here's the problem. The Mets are acting in desperation. They need immediate help with the rotation. They did not add at the deadline, regardless, and if you want to fault Stearns or not there, that's fine. I understand the people that aren't, because no one outside of Merrill Kelly was really traded this past year's deadline. The point still stands, however. When they are inevitably called up, they're called up because the Mets are in need of them, not because of, they forced their hand up here. Because if we're basing things on force their hand, Noah McLean should have been up with this team a month and a half ago at minimum. He has been the most consistent starter in the Mets minor leagues thus far that we've seen. He's sitting with right around a 3 ERA that we've seen in Syracuse this year. Brandon Sproat has a .67 ERA over the past month plus in the month of July. He's been a flamethrower. He's been dominant. So has McLean. Enough with the excuses. It is time to give these kids a shot.
I think they're getting close. I think they've both had really good months and are making progress.
Developmentally, do you think they're ready?
So that's about it in regards to David Stearns. He says they're close, and that's good. We're going to see them soon. And I also understand that based on when Sproat and McLean were slotted to pitch, that it really wouldn't have been overly ideal for them to come Saturday, but at the same time, they could have been utilized in a smaller pitching sample size on Saturday in, say, a piggyback situation with Frankie Montas, or whenever Montas is expected to slate pitch. It's Friday or Saturday, I know that for the most part there against the Brewers in Milwaukee. And I'm not looking forward to that because the Brewers are the Brewers. The Mets are horrendous in Milwaukee, outside of obviously Alonso's tremendous bomb off of Devin Williams there that we saw opposite field for the first home run Devin Williams has ever given up opposite field to a right-handed batter there going back to last year's wild card. Now Williams is more concerned about giving up bombs to Jock Pearson in the ninth inning this past day, blowing it there against the Texas Rangers for the Yankees. But I'm getting on a tangent here. What I'm trying to say in regards to the kids, everybody, we have beaten this drum for weeks on end, and the fact that it is even really service time manipulation as to why they're not being considered now is all the more frustrating, because at least you can make the argument before as to why I hate it and don't agree with it. That's the philosophy. No, the philosophy right now is we're just not calling them up yet because we're not comfortable. But think about the endless opportunities that the Mets could have utilized one in Noah McLean or Brandon Sproat, specifically McLean between the two, because Sproat really didn't blossom until this past month and a half or so. So there's more understanding as to why Brandon is not being heavily considered until now. But McLean is a guy that's been dominating since the start of the season began in AA, quickly got moved up to AAA, and has had, what, one or two not great starts in AAA? Otherwise, he's been cruising. So what are we doing here? What we are doing is not making the proper decisions. When you utilize the Blade Tidwells, the Brandon Waddells, the Justin Hagemans of the world, mind you, the Mets utilize those guys over numerous starts that went in direct hand as to why they have a 5-10 record when utilizing openers. When are we going to get it through our thick skulls that this is not going to work? When are we going to finally understand that it's time to give these kids a leash? And here's the thing, even if they don't perform well right away, you have to continue to give them more opportunities. This is why, at minimum, McLean should have been up here before the trade deadline for the final month and a half or so, when you had Senga down, when you had Canny first rupture his Achilles, when you had McGill down, when you had Manaea still working his way back. There were so many opportunities in this effing rotation, yet still, even still, the Mets defer to go with short-term options, guys that never had a future in the organization, over Noah McLean, who has been consistently dominant. And I understand he hasn't been laying the world on fire when you look at the K-to-walk ratio, but there's still a lot to like about McLean. He just hasn't gotten swing and miss at maybe an absurd level the way that you're hoping. Then you look at Brandon Sproat. Sproat over the past month and a half especially has been dominant. Definitely can make the argument as to why one, if not both, these guys should be here. And there's a reality where both do impact the Mets before the end of the season. There's a reality where Brandon Sproat still has 50-plus innings or so that he can utilize outside the innings that he's already thrown this year. McLean still can throw 40-plus innings or so, hypothetically, before you maybe want to shut him down because maybe he's hit his innings limit of the year. We don't know exactly what that hard line is when it comes to innings limits, but what we do know is that the Mets are primed in a key opportunity to consider one of these guys, and the fact that they haven't yet is very frustrating. Not only myself, but I think the masses in Mets land, because this is just coming down to stubbornness. You had key opportunities, yet you decide to wait until there are no better options, until your hand is forced where you basically have to call them up. Why are we doing that? Even with the Mets in a pennant race right now, even with the Mets only a game and a half back of first in the NL East, why are you not being more proactive in that regard, the way that you've been so proactive and a lot of the other guys being moved up in the minor leagues, especially from the reliever front and the position player front? Yet when it comes to our top pitching prospects who have been consistently good, including Jonathan, who's the best pitching prospect in baseball right now, you can argue, we have done nothing but move at a snail's pace in regards to these players. And while I understand not wanting to hurt one's confidence, it doesn't matter about hurting one's confidence if they're never even considered at the major league level. You have to give them an opportunity. If they don't succeed, okay. And you know what, David? If anything, you have yourself to blame, because you had key opportunity a month and a half plus, 2 months plus, before the deadline to consider one of them, to give you a greater grasp as to what you have internally before then figuring out what you're going to do maybe externally at the deadline. Maybe if the Mets gave a look to one of these kids beforehand, and if they didn't blossom over, say, a 3-4 start span, that would have been enough for David Stearns to move the needle a little bit more. Maybe doing what it takes to land a Merrill Kelly, even though he didn't love the idea of coming to New York. Maybe even going for more back-end options like a Bailey Falter, like a Charlie Morton, who I don't love to say, but at the same time, they're innings eaters, and right now the Mets are not even getting their innings eaten. This is why it's frustrating, because you don't have any other options, yet your internal options that you have to deal with now, and regardless on how good or bad these kids are going to be, we just have to bite the bullet and wait and see what happens now. That is what I have to say, and thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Final thing, folks, that I want to relay before we get out of here is as follows. Dom Hamel, as I mentioned, has been called up by this Mets team, and I apologize for that audio that was just running a second ago, but let's hear from Dom Hamel on Getting the Call.
Have you had any conversations about expectations for you up here, what it's going to look like? Not really. I'm really just trying not to leave him a choice. Like, I don't want to go back. I'm up here. I'm thinking I'm up here for a reason, so I'm just going to do my thing and let it ride.
Love that from Dom. In case you guys don't know, I actually had the privilege of interviewing Dom Hamel a couple years ago, and this was right at Shout Out My Guy Anthony Recker. This is when we had our previous podcast, Believe in Queens. There's my dog, Joe Cirillo. Hope they're both doing fantastic right now. But as you guys can see right there on his iPhone in his garage, there in Arizona at the time, was our guy, Dom Hamel. And at the time, Dom Hamel was coming off of a fantastic 2022 minor league season where he was named Mets Minor League Pitcher of the Year. At the time, he was ranked second as the Mets' second best pitching prospect at the time. Things have changed a lot since then. Dom Hamel is not nearly as coveted, and he's been transitioned from a starter to a reliever. This year that we have seen in Syracuse, Dom Hamel has been pretty much, a 4.5 or 4.7 year rayer. So not great numbers, but again, getting acclimated and getting transition as a reliever. He's been solid in bulk outings, handling, say, 1, 2, 3+ innings of work. And the Mets also won another innings eater in there after Austin Warren went 4 shutty for them 48 hours ago. Do I anticipate Dom Hamel to be in this Mets bullpen for long? No, I honestly think he's only going to be here until the Mets honestly consider calling up one of Brandon Sproat or Noel McLean. But in the meantime, we're going to see what Dom can provide to this Mets bullpen as a multi-inning option, more of the lower leverage option versus all the higher leverage options that you have. And Edwin Diaz, Ryan Helsley, Tyler Rogers, Brooks Raley, Gregory Soto, Reed Garrett, and then to a lesser degree now Ryan Stanek, among others. So, Dom Hamel, congratulations on getting your opportunity in the bigs, my friend. I hope it lasts longer than a guy like Shane Pintaro, for example, who was called up earlier this year. But I'm really, really interested to see what Dom Hamel can provide at the major league level, if anything of quality. And if he does, that's great. We're rooting for you, Dom. Really, really happy to see you get this opportunity. A lot overdue. We were anticipating it once you got transitioned to a reliever this year, but now let's see what's next in store for you, as well as this Mets team. Final thing from your guy, Wardy, before I get out of here, everybody. The Mets have not played consistent baseball over the past 2 months. They've really been brutal on the consistency front since their first 2 months of the season. Is that a fluke? No, it's a problem. And in order for the Mets to right the ship here, they need to build their identity. There is a lack of identity versus what the Mets had working in their favor in 2024. And that lack of identity, I think, is eating away at this team from really coming together in unison. It feels like that they are more segmented as a group versus coming together as one, which is what they need them to be. That is why taking the next 2 games against the Guardians is pivotal. And folks, be on the lookout because there's a great chance that we may be live later on today in the playback app there covering this Mets Guardians game with a very special guest. Just waiting official word on that, so look out for it on the community post on the platform there where I will tell you guys exactly time and who I'm going to be doing it with should it happen. But playback.tv/WardyNYM, barring changes, we're planning to do a watch party for that Mets Guardians matchup later on today. Folks, have a fantastic rest of your day, night, evening, whenever you're watching this. Let us know all your key takeaways in the comments down below from the latest on David Stearns. Do you think he's being overly stubborn with the kids? Frankie Montas' utilization, do you agree or disagree with that? As Carlos Mendoza relayed the latest there on Sproat, McLean, Dom Hamel, and everything else happening in Mets land. Thank you guys again. Hit that like and subscribe on your way out, and let's go Mets, baby. Peace out, folks.